questions I see repetitively or I hear a lot. So the first one is, should we wait until spring to find a new home? We're seeing very few available homes right now. And some friends
prices
suggested,
going up.
And what do you think? Well, what are our risks in waiting? Well, we're going to tie this down for one. You could absolutely wait till spring. And here's the challenge. The challenge is exactly what Perry just alluded to, which is you run the risk that prices are going to be higher. Now, if you have a home to sell, one of the things you need to think about is you may get the benefit of that as well. And the wild card in all this is what happens with interest rates. This is a presidential election year. We don't know where things are going to go. There's a lot of artificial stimulation that goes on in a year like this. That I expect, and I keep betting you on these things, Perry. You know, you already owe me one drink as a result of the bet about how much sales were up. I expect the Federal Reserve to do what's called quantitative easing, or their big stimulation to the economy, on the 13th. So this Thursday, I think you're going to see them announce that. That will move the market. That will move interest rates. That will move everything. Now, all that could potentially reverse between now and the spring when it comes to the aspect of what we're talking about for benefits. Right now, there are some real benefits in the market to purchase. Now, for one, if you can't find something to purchase right now, that may very well be a complete stop on putting his home on the market. And this is going to tie into the next question on why I picked it. The risks, you may pay more for a house. You may pay more for a house because of higher interest rates. Will there be more supply of homes on the market? Generally, seasonally, yes. And I want to put a big caveat out. If the economy continues in Austin to be strong, meaning low unemployment, high job creation, we may continue to see an absolute shortage of housing inventory. It may get worse in the spring than it is right now. It may not get significantly better, but seasonally we generally do see more homes on the market. So one, you very well could see no improvement in what you have to choose for, and you may have to hunker down and wait if you can't find something to purchase. So Stephen is our next question. And Stephen would like to sell his home and downsize either into a small garden home or possibly a condo downtown. This sounds pretty familiar, right, Barry?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
just did this last week.
Things seem to be very quick, selling quickly. We can list our home for sale and make it, and they want to know, can they list their home for sale and make it contingent on them finding a new place to buy?
Can I answer this question? I did this just last week.
Absolutely. That's why I have it here, because I know that you get this a lot.
Stephen, this is so common. I want to share with you just some examples that I had. I was working with a lovely lady named Robin. Robin was in Belterra, and she has gotten the last one out. And after a couple of years in college, her little one finally cleared out all her room. So she's ready to get rid of her big 4-bedroom house and move downtown and downsize. She just happened to be looking at a very similar property that we had, and I sold her a condo over there at Terrace on Shoal Creek, and one of the items that she felt was really important was having a contingency of sale. There are buyers and sellers' needs. In this case, both of them matched up. So the seller was willing to take that. We asked for a 90-day contingency, which was very generous because I've seen 60-day contingencies more often than 90, but we asked anyway. And you asked just to ask, to hear the answer, and she got what she wanted, and she deserved to get what she wanted. You can too, Stephen. You just got to ask over and over and be willing to hear no, but sometimes you hear yes.
Right.
To try it. She tried it first. She tried the contingency before putting her property on sale. I understand that. That makes sense to me. So I would think about using an agent that would do that for you as well.
Well, and it's realistic. I could turn around the opposite way. I mean, I think that there's potentially, especially if you're in a hot market, there's potentially, because of limited inventory, the ability to put your home on the market and basically make it very clear that there's going to be a contingency for the seller to find the home they want to purchase. And because of a lack of supply, a buyer, if it's the right home, may be willing to enter a contract the opposite way and say, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we're going to give you some period of time to go find a home. In normal markets, where there's adequate supply and they have plenty of choices, most buyers, if it were a buyer's market, would say no. And that dynamic has changed, hasn't it?
It has. Well, yeah, I think that you have more people willing to do things, and there are times, like let me give you another example. Sometimes it's easier to get contingencies when you're working with a buyer who hasn't yet decided to put his house on the market, or a seller that hasn't put his house on the market yet. Great example. I know you know a lot of people over there in Canyon Creek. I know a lot of people in the 360 community condominium. I sometimes call them and say, hey, are you interested in selling? I have someone who wants to buy, but he needs a contingency. You can work deals like that, too, very easily.
Yeah, it just takes some structuring. It takes an agent with some transactional experience. Again, if you haven't listened to our special last week where we get into a long discussion about how to pick the right agent, you probably should do that, because a lot of times you will hear a no, won't you, Perry, from an inexperienced agent that you can't do this.
Well, that's just not true. That's just not true.
No. Now you have, like you said, you have to be willing to be flexible enough that you know that somebody's going to potentially say no, and you may have to go through several no's to get to a yes. And what I mean by that is, let's say you are on the market, some buyers could say, no, we're not going to wait. But if you've got multiple offers, the likelihood that somebody's going to say yes, we'll sit tight for 60 days, is actually probably much higher than would be in a normal market.
Right. So in a hot market like Canyon Creek right now, 21 days in the market, how would you suggest they handle a contingency issue? If you were the seller.
If you were the seller, I mean, I think what you're going to want to do is you're going to not want to surprise people about this. In other words, it doesn't work nearly as well when you put your house on the market and you get 5, 6 offers in, and then you surprise them all with a notification that, oh, we love your offer, we've got multiple offers, we're going to take one, but we want a contingency in order for us to find what we're going to purchase.
Okay, that makes sense.
What works well is to put it into the agent remarks, be very clear up front, but also that seller who's going to be a buyer needs to be fully pre-approved. They need to be out there looking at property, and in some cases, they need to, if they're working with a great agent, have been through enough homes that they're already aware of what their requirement is, so that when it does come up very quickly, they aren't disappointed. Because what I do see is the other thing, which is they don't really have a good handle on the market. They have this fictitious vision of what they thought they could move into, either move up, move down, whatever they were looking to do. And then once they sell very quickly because their agent didn't set good expectations, they quickly go look at property, and they're like, God, we don't see anything we even like. That's a bad way to do it. They should know what's out there. It may be that by the time they put their house on the market, when they looked at it, in most likelihood it would all be sold. But don't put your house on the market if you haven't gone to look at what is going to be a typical home in your target range, price range, area. Even though you're not going to buy it because it's likely to be sold, one of the ways it works well, Perry, is that that listing agent will have that buyer out through some property because they need to know whether it's going to work or not. I mean, I'd much rather have somebody tell me, we decided not to sell because we have what we thought we could buy just doesn't exist. Because it's not going to work, because there's no court in the state of Texas that's going to tell somebody if they put their house on the market, they get multiple offers, and they say, no, we're not selling anymore, we can't figure out what to buy. Courts in Texas don't force them to sell their house. They didn't enter into a binding contract. You know, agents can argue all day long, but the court cases in Texas don't ever support that.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, even if you're getting full price offers, you know, they just, you know, you think about the ability for people to own, and I'm certainly not trying to practice law. I'm just telling you what I've seen in practice.
Right. And the reviews that we have to read. Yeah.
And what I see happening, and you answered the question, I wanted to answer it in detail, is don't put yourself in harm's way. Don't put your seller in harm's way. Get them out looking at property, and don't be afraid to tell them the truth. What you're looking for doesn't exist. Or it's going to be tough to find. There's just not a lot available like that. So what happens if we're under contract with multiple offers in the first 24 hours? What would you do then? And they may say, well, I'm not going to sell if that's the case.
You can walk away.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Perry, episode 9, all done. We're ready for episode 10 next week. I think with all luck and fortuitous planning, we should have another guest on with us next week. And it should be ready next week. I had planned on doing it this week, but should be ready next week to do the total market overview and give us our September update. Got a little bit behind with some activity, was busy with a client. So I'll pull those numbers this week, and we'll put them together and go through that report as to where the market is. We'll be able to talk about inventory at the lower price ranges versus the upper, because like we talked about last week with Barton Creek, it's all starting to get a little bit firmer, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's great market out there if you're selling too.